So this here. I'm gonna try to get this together. I'm not sure what the best way. Okay, let's try this. Let's take this off. Make it a little brighter in here. Okay, does this work? Hi, hello. Hey guys, let me center myself. I'll go back a little bit, right? Oh my goodness. Hey fam, hey, what is good? So, welcome to day 2. If you're just joining me, hi, my name is Daphne Eugene. I am a lot of things, okay? But these videos are coming out from a push and inspiration from, hello, I'm right here, right here, yes, this is me. So I'm just also still trying to figure out this camera business. Listen, okay, this year in 2026, we're showing up on YouTube with what we got, okay? We're showing up on YouTube how we are, you know, as we are, and y'all are just gonna accept it because y'all ain't got no other choice. I really hope this video focuses all throughout the video, but if it doesn't, y'all can hear my voice, follow the sound of my voice. So I'm on a 21-day journey on sharing my life here on how I got to Europe. I'm currently in Vienna, Austria. February 21st will make it 10 years since I've left America. And so I'm finally sharing my story with you guys of how I did it. The ups and downs, the lows, the valleys, the peaks, the lessons. 10 years. I spent my 30s in Europe. I'm so shocked. Okay, every time I say that, I'm just like, what? But here we are. And so I just wanted to share with you guys, and each video is gonna have a different, I'm literally just gonna be talking to you guys and tell you guys how it all happened. And before we go any further, it all happened because of the grace of God. Okay, let's make that clear. And that is even beyond my disobedience, but when my obedience was at peak, baby, God showed up and showed out. So yeah, this is where we are. And if you watch my last video, I think we left off when I was sharing with you guys how my brother came down. My brother's in the military. He came down, he picked me up, and we drove to San Antonio. Oh, I like that. Okay, camera. Anyways, so we drove to San Antonio, and this is literally a quick snippet of my life in America, right? So, from high school, I went to college, to University of Florida. That's also in the first video. From college, I was back home for 5 months, depressed for 5 months. Then my brother came and we moved to San Antonio. From San Antonio, I moved to New York. From New York, I moved to California. From California, I moved to Germany. From Germany, I moved to Austria, which is where I'm currently at right now. Okay, so that's what's happening. That's the storyline. And yeah, so my brother picked me up from Miami. We drove to San Antonio. And in San Antonio, I was still a bit, it was obviously a fresh start. I was happy for me, I just felt like, why am I here? Like, San Antonio for me was not in the books. It was not in the written, you know, thing, but apparently it was. And I got to San Antonio, and I remember it was Halloween, but of course we went to church, and it was Hallelujah night. And I remember I went, and I dived right in. And of course, if you guys remember, I was listening to this pastor via CDs that my brother had shipped home. Not knowing, like, he didn't know, but I was just like, oh, he has, you know, let me catch something, a word from God. Like, you know, that's what it was. And so this is the church we attended because all of them moved to San Antonio. And so now I'm with my brother, I'm living with my brother. And mind you, I just graduated college. And if you know college, you know, we did a lot of things in college. And my brother is a dry house. And so there's like no alcohol, ... and which was fine, which is totally fine. And so I had to adjust to that, and I had to adjust to, that weight in a sense. I had no job, I had no prospect of a job. I didn't know what I was gonna do. But I ended up, there was a Target that was being built by our house, and I ended up applying for the job, and I got the job. And mind you, this was like brick and mortar. There was like nothing. This was nothing. And so I was part of the team that built it up. And so I saw it from concrete to supplies to products to customers. And yeah, so that was a way beginning. I got a job there. Mind you, I am a graduate with a bachelor's degree working at Target. Sometimes you need to be humbled to get to the places that you need to be. Degrees don't mean anything. And I just, listen, because God is going to call the unqualified, okay? So you might think you're qualified. Oh, I got a degree. I got all this. And then here you are bagging paper or bagging groceries. You're resupplying products. Then what? You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't feel no type of way about it. I don't think I've ever. I wasn't that girl that was like, I have a bachelor's degree. I have a master's degree, which I do as well. My color. I have several degrees. You know what I mean? And there is nothing for those that push that forward. As much as I'm proud of my degrees, I'm also humble about it because I've worked literally retail. I was a teacher. I don't know how. I think because I had a bachelor's degree, I was a teacher. Like, why would somebody let me teach their kids? This is 3 and 4-year-olds. I didn't know anything about teaching 3 and 4-year-olds, okay? This was in San Antonio. So I was a teacher in San Antonio after the Target job, which the Lord saved me from. So I applied to be a teacher at Head Start. And from there, I remember I had a student, Lord bless his heart, I think his name was Xander. And he was very educated for his age, but because if you know Head Start, you know that the kids are in broken homes. Sometimes both parents aren't in the home, or it's always something. But obviously Head Start is so that the kids can still get an education. And so I was a teacher for Head Start. I think I did it for like 2 years. And I remember they gave us the curriculum, and I was like, okay, I can do that. I can read, I can write, I can teach. And so this kid, it was time for a nap. And I was like, okay, it's nap time. And he was like, but I'm not tired. I'm not sleepy. I get that, but it's quiet time. Everybody got to go quiet. At this point, I was like up to here. And so he decides, I said it's quiet time. He decides to pick up a chair and throw it against the door. And so my automatic day counting 305 reaction was to yank him up by his little collar. I looked at him. I wanted to shake him. I put him down. And I said, get out of my classroom. Get out. No, I don't want to. Get out. Because first of all, I didn't know how to deal with that. Okay, it wasn't my forte. It wasn't my ministry at the moment. But it did teach me that at 5 years old, you don't know how to regulate your nervous system. You don't know how to regulate your emotions. You don't know what you're doing. And it wasn't the proper response, obviously. And but since then, he has been my best student because I've realized how to care for him in a way that he can still learn, because he was the smartest kid in my class and he wanted attention. And so that was the thing. He wanted attention. He wasn't getting it at home. And so here he comes to class bored because what I'm teaching the kids, he already knew. So, but that time as a teacher, I ended up enjoying it, and I learned a lot about myself. I felt like they taught me more than I taught them. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about me, is that I was a teacher. And I think it trickles down the line as far as how I treat people, how I interact, how my relationships with coworkers and stuff like that, because it just gave me an insight of, from children to adults, how if you don't learn how to regulate your emotions as a child, you will not, as an adult, you're going to have issues too. So that was one of the things for me. So yeah, that was that. And so my life was literally going to church because I was part of many ministries, you know, the church choir, I was part of the cafe. I was, you know, we were at church. When we was in at church, we was either bowling or at the movies, or we was doing something with the church, or I was at work, you know. And one thing, and I remember, my thing is, God talks to me very clearly when I'm in a headspace to, even when I'm not in a headspace to listen, like he'd be like, Daph, like you need to get it together. Two different instances that happened at church. I remember one time, I think we were moving from one building to another, and they were having a moment, like a testimony moment, where, you know, they're just like sharing, you know, share your testimony. But I think before that, actually, we were in choir rehearsal in the middle of worship. I remember this is clear as day. We were in the middle of worship, and I remember God saying, do what you have to do. You are not here for long. And looking back now at my San Antonio time, I really felt like I was, you know, it was like my 40 nights and 40 days in the desert. Okay. You know, it was about 2 years, but it just felt like anything I wanted to do that was not of God's will, he was just like, no, you know, and because God has plans for us, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes we trip up and we want to mess it up, but he's like, no, listen, okay, get back here. And so that was one of the things. And I remember I was like, okay, you know, and at the time my mom was like, Daph, get your master's degree while you're there, go and get your master's degree. And so I was just like, all right, fine, I guess I'll get it. And when I moved there, though, I still wanted to pursue my law degree. But I still wanted to pursue law because that's what I thought. Because of mama, you got to do law, you got to do law. And so I thought, okay, I got to do law. That wasn't the case. Because my brother paid for a whole course for me to study, to do all this other stuff. I still failed. I think I failed that test. I failed the LSAT like 3 times. And you need the LSAT to get into law school. And I was like, I bet. You know, and even up until moving to New York, I like brought the books with me thinking, okay, I'm gonna still try to get to law. Yeah, no, that wasn't the case. And so I remember, then the next instance was we were at like a worship night, and they were, you know, people were saying, you know, share your story, share your testimony. And I remember sharing my story, like, you know, how I was like, you know, this is what God said to me. And I remember an elder, he was like, God didn't say that. You're not going anywhere. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to New York. Because I was like, after I graduate from my MBA program, I'm moving to New York. And I remember he said, the elder was like, you ain't, you know, going there. That's not what God said and stuff like that. And I laughed. I just laughed. And I was just like, you know what? Sometimes you're in a place, sometimes you're in churches, and this is nothing against churches, because I grew up in the church. However, the way it's going right now, I just feel like, you know, you gotta know God for yourself. And I'm grateful for my mother. Okay, Mrs. Lucy Eugene, listen, I'm grateful for her because she always, no matter what, was always like, talk to God. Like if something hurts, say, you know, put your hand on where it's at and speak to the Lord about what hurts. And she was waking up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., waking us up before school so we can pray and read the Bible verses. We was on our knees sleepy in the living room. But I look back at that and I'm grateful for that because she created a foundation for us. You know, obviously which is in the Bible, you know, teach a child the way it should go so that if they won't leave it. Like we didn't leave. You know, we were straight, of course, but it was always back, this is what God wanted us to do. And so when the elder said that, I just like laughed, you know, because I know who I was in Christ. Yeah, I sinned, you know, we're sinners, you know what I'm saying? But it didn't stop me from knowing who I was. It didn't stop me from knowing, you know, what he does in my life. It didn't stop me from knowing what he said, clear as day. And so when that happened, I was just like, yeah. And many times, even in church folks, you can't tell everybody your business. And if you do share, and I think that's why a lot of people get very discouraged when they go to church because here they are thinking they're sharing this with someone, with an elder or with a pastor or whatever, and that wasn't the case. And I mean, and there has been actually other instances that has happened, and I just thank God for always having his hand over my life. Like, always. And just like thinking about it, and I share this with people, and I'm just like, I'm his favorite. What can I tell you? But just knowing sometimes God will tell you things and you can't share that. You write it down, see, remind yourself, you know what I'm saying? And that's really what, like, after saying it and seeing, I'm like, okay, bet. And then I remember I graduated from my MBA program. And mind you, I didn't tell anyone, really. After that, I was just like, I bet. My brother ended up leaving San Antonio to head over to Ohio. And I was in the house by myself. And because we had a roommate as well. And I think at that point he left, he moved out. And so it was just me in the house, whatever. And stuff. I remember people were offering me, like protection or, different things, to like, you by yourself, not as, and I'm just like, I'm good. God got me, so I wasn't worried about that. Why is this? Are you serious? I deleted the things. My bad, guys. Okay, and we're back. I think it has like a 16-minute cap. But anyways, we're back. Okay. So yeah. So, they wanted to offer, like, oh, we can check up on you. I'm like, no, I'm good. Because when my brother was here, there wasn't no extra. Not everybody, some people. But I'm very, I know who I am. I'm very confident in who I am and whose I am. And I think that's something I want to remind people. Like, you have to remember who you belong to. Because things are going to try to phase you. And because you belong to the Most High, you're the daughter of a king, I bet, do your thing. Like, I'm good. And I think people were intimidated, or people was just like, we can't shake her. You can't. You can't. Like, this is who I am. And so, I literally finished my program. Packed up the car. I think the day before I left, I went to church. And after I graduated my program, my sister-in-law, she decorated my car, whatever, and stuff like that. And I remember, I think one day before I left, I was just like, all right, thank you so much for everything. This is my last day in San Antonio. I'm driving to New York. And they were like, what? Yeah. Because when I tried to share it with y'all didn't believe me. So it's okay. I can show you better than I can tell you. But that, and I think many times people are, not everyone is meant to understand your vision. Not everyone is meant to understand what God promises for your life. And that's okay. And you have to be okay with that. And this is people closest to you. You have to be okay with people not understanding what God has already spoken to you. That's not their business. That's between you and God, But on the flip side, you also have people that will 100% support you. Because my girl, I told her this is the date. She took the time off from her job. Hey, Keish, hey. And hopped in the car and we drove to New York. And then, mind you, this is how everything just works out. And like, between my faith and between the journey that God had planned for my life. So I remember I was graduating school. I was finished in my MBA program. And mind you, I didn't have anything saved really. And I think we were like Hobby Lobby. We were in some store. And I think we were like, me and my girl was talking. We were just, chit-chatting and stuff like that. She was like, well, how is this going to pay? I was like, girl, I don't know. I trust God. Like, I don't know. Because the thing is, too, I was in communication with my old roommate from college. And it so happened that she used to live with her sister. And her sister was moving out at the same time I was moving to New York. Because I was in a different apartment. And so that happened. So I was like, all right, bet. I got a place to stay. I had no job. I had no job prospects. I wasn't even looking. I didn't start looking for a job until I got to New York. And, but that time in San Antonio, we were in Hobby Lobby, whatever. The moment I said, I was like, God got me. I trust God. A direct deposit hit my account. I I was like, who this from? Do I gotta pay it back? Like, and I think it was a school deposit that I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know where it was gonna come from. Like, it just, I don't know. But it was there, and we drove. I got to what's that place called? New York, Brooklyn, and like again, I had a place to stay. The rent was a grand for, it was like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It was a nice spot in Park Slope in Brooklyn. My part was $1,000. Asked me how I was gonna pay for it monthly. I don't know. I was, again, depression wanted to come. But the thing is, I always wanted to live in New York. I was like, oh, New York is the place. New York is my forever home. It wasn't. It really wasn't. But so from Texas to New York, I get to New York. I'm on application sites. I'm applying. I find a job at DSW, kind of same instance from like Target. It was not a store. It was just a building, and we built it from ground up. From nothing to shoes. And again, mind you, now I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, but yet here I am working in retail, right? So yeah, that happened, which I was okay with. Like, again, I was just like, a job is a job. Is bringing an income. I can go ahead and pay my part of rent. I don't know how I paid rent. I kid you not. I don't know how I paid rent. Okay, but it got paid on time by the grace of God. Like, I look back now, I'm just like, I don't know. But I think I worked there for a little bit. But in the meantime, I was still looking for a job. And so I ended up signing up for a temp agency, and I got a job with a construction firm. This was the first job and the last job I applied for. And I got a job with a temp agency. Oh my gosh. I got a temp position with a construction firm, and I was helping the office manager and at the time. And so I was, getting into that. Again, I don't know anything about construction. My degree is in a bachelor's in anthropology. My master's in business administration. Here I am, construction. I don't know. But I got it. I worked with her, and then we ended up, we were in a temp space because they were building their new offices. And then we ended up, the experiences that I've gained, I promise you this is all for something greater. I don't know what yet, but I just know this is for something greater. Because we were in a building, and we ended up packing up the whole building, categorizing all the files. Like, when I say, like, taking pictures of this and having this file so that when we needed it, in the meantime, we could still find it. Because I think some of the stuff ended up in storage while we were moving into the building. And so we did all that. Me and her was like working like dogs. The New York hustle is a hustle. But I was just like, oh, I love this. Cause like, what else was I gonna do in New York? But even then, at one point before I got the job, I remember at that point, I've given up on law. I was just like, I'm not doing law. But I didn't know how to tell my mama, because that was her big dream. And I think a lot of times as Haitian parents, as Haitian kids or Caribbean kids, even I think African kids, we so desire to please our parents. And so we try to do what they want us to do. And we get stuck emotionally, and it's just like, what do we do? So I called my brother. I'm like, yo, I don't want to be a lawyer no more. I'm supposed to tell mommy, like, what? He's like, man, I don't know. You got to tell her though. And so I remember I packed all my LSAT books. I put it on the stoop in front of my apartment, because then you could just pick them up. Whoever needed them, pick them up. And I decided, I was just like, I am done living the life of someone else. I'm done living the dream that someone else wants for my life, because it wasn't for me. It's not what was spoken over my life. And I remember calling her and telling her that, and she was just like, oh, okay, like, I mean, at the end of the day, what can she do? Like, I don't want to do law. I failed on the test. All the LSATs. Like, what are you going to do now? So that happened. So now I'm working at this construction firm. They ended up hiring me full time, and interesting enough, the office manager that moved them, whatever, I think she ended up quitting or whatever happened, and then I became the office manager. What I know about being an office manager, okay, but I learned fast, you know what I'm saying? You know, I was bringing the executives coffee, I was making the copies, I was picking up the phone calls, I was doing the orders. You know, me and the executive assistant planned all the dinner parties. We planned all the company parties. It was a good time, honestly, because we were in Wall Street. I loved it. I really truly loved New York, because I just always thought of like Sex in the City, like, you know, like taxi. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And from being there, I kind of like, I feel like being a teacher and being office manager was completely parallel in the sense of dealing with children and dealing with 60, 70-year-old executives. They don't know nothing, okay? Because I remember some of my executives would be like, Daphne, we need your help. I'm just like, what happened? My computer is not doing data. Bam. I'm like, did we try unplugging it and plugging it back in? Oh, my job as office manager, you are the caterer, you are the technician, you are IT, you just everything. And so that's what it was. But I also I created an atmosphere that you wanted to come to work, because as I got more and more comfortable, I was just like, you know, we need a break. And I mean, we would go to lunch, and I had like a work brother, friend, whatever, he was amazing. I loved him. And we would go down for lunch for sushi, you know, like how they do it on TV. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. I made it. But we did all that. I'm getting hot. But anyways, so we did all that. And there was times where I would send emails out and be like, all right, break, everybody come to the living room. We had this one big space where we can play around with the tables. And I would oh, that's my chicken. I would call in like masseuse. I would call in different caterers, and I would have like all this stuff displayed so that the team could have a break from the work, because the workload was heavy. You know, it was picking up clients, so it was a lot. So I always felt like you want to be at work, so let's make it enjoyable. So that was a really great space. And so the thing that made me want to go to culinary school was, I remember one time we would have a lot of business dinners. Or business lunches, and it was my job to like find new places or find new caterers to either do our dinner parties or business lunches. And I remember I would go to different restaurants and I would like taste their food, or they would come to us and like show, you know, different things, whatever. And I just fell in love with food all over again. Like, I felt like that was my first passion, but because my mom was like, no, law, I couldn't pursue that. And back in the day, like, being a chef wasn't some luxurious, it was an ideal profession. But I was just like, well, I think I found what I want to do. And funny enough, I don't remember when, but I remember having a dream or a vision where I drove across the country. And this is before New York, this is before Texas. I just remember that I did that. And so once I decided, okay, cool, I looked up schools in New York, but it was hella expensive. And so then I was like, you know what? Where's the farthest place I can go? So I looked at Le Cordon Bleu in California. I emailed them, I applied. They had grants and everything like that. So I was just like, bet, that's where we going. And so I got in, and after I got in, I started planning to leave. I told my boss, and he was just like, no, don't leave us. Like, he was like, I'll pay for your school if you stay in New York. And I was just like, as beautiful as that sounds, the schools here it just wasn't, it was too much. It wasn't worth it and stuff. And yeah, I mean, that transition too, because like my roommate, it was like, again, everything just happened. My roommate got engaged, and she was moving to, I want to say, one of the Carolinas, South or North Carolina. And so our lease was up, and like literally everything just lined up and happened. I ended up moving in with a friend for a couple of months. And after that New Year, like I stayed with her, I want to say maybe like 5 or 6 months in Jersey City. And then after that, I moved home. I packed my bags and all my stuff and moved it home so that I can drive to California. And so yeah, so that's what happened. I'm gonna stop right here. And so far we got from Miami to college to San Antonio to New York. And tomorrow we're gonna talk about leaving New York and moving to California, driving across country lines. I can't wait to tell y'all how I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have a place to stay halfway across the country. Like, I was literally on Craigslist. Y'all remember Craigslist? I was on Craigslist driving through Tallahassee looking for an apartment in California, in LA. Y'all can't tell me God ain't good. Like, what? Daphne? Like, you're emailing strangers and you're already on your way to California? Like, what? Yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, I left my 6-figure job. Okay, no, it wasn't 6 figures. It was almost there, but it wasn't there. I left my corporate life to chase a dream. And it continues. Thank you guys. If you guys lasted this long, I so appreciate you. Stay tuned. Come back tomorrow. We're gonna talk so much more. I have so much to tell you. And I can't wait to share with you why I left America. And people are asking like, well, why'd you choose Europe? I don't think I chose Europe. I think Europe chose me, or Germany specifically chose me. And I mean, me leaving America in the beginning wasn't because of what's happening now. It was because there was an opportunity and I said yes to it. And so that's that. But come back tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. And if you have questions, please leave comments below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Again, my name is Daphne Eugene, and I'm finally telling my story. I left America 10 years ago, and I spent my 30s in Europe. What? Yeah, so ciao. Bye.